Hey there, everybody. It's me again, Chris Herman, here for another episode of On Deck. Today's episode number 82, and I want to spend a little time talking about the retail automotive future. I'm going to talk a little shit in this episode and just ramble a little bit about some of my thoughts in terms of what I'm seeing based on my observations in the retail automotive space. And, with the pressure coming from the manufacturers on EVs, the pressure coming from the government on EVs, technology, et cetera, there's a lot of pressure on the retail automotive business. And currently, dealers are wonderfully and fortunately able to maximize profitability right now through this, through this inventory shortage crisis, whatever you want to call it. I mean, God, it's almost been a year now. And, every dealer is still in the same situation, low inventory, extremely high gross profit, extremely high net profit. It's a great time to be a retail automotive dealer. And, I think that now's a great time for dealers to be spending some time thinking about not the immediate future, but the future. Some of what I'm going to share with you is coming from, a few months back when I was at the Autovate conference in Austin, Texas. Autovate is Cliff Banks's conference where we have a lot of high-level industry professionals come in talking about the future of the business. Also things that I've read recently, including an article, by Jim Ziegler recently that I thought was pretty spot on in terms of some things that he thought the manufacturer were looking at. So again, I'm going to bounce around a little bit. These are just my opinions. I'm not going to be citing any references here, but I do think that there's an element of truth in what I'm sharing, and I would be really interested to hear, comments or feedback on these thoughts. We all know that technology is massively driving the world. It is massively driving the retail automotive business, and the disruptions the world has faced as a result of COVID, and perhaps now due to the situation in Ukraine, are putting continued stress and strain on the supply chain, which is resulting in, a shortage of new vehicles, which concurrently is resulting in massive profitability for dealers. And that's not to say that the manufacturers aren't making a lot more money as well, too. They are. I mean, they're selling less vehicles, but they don't have to incentivize the vehicles to the same level. And when I think the average incentive on a new vehicle from the manufacturer side is, I want to say it's like $2,000 or $3,000 they build in incentives and advertising and marketing. That's a lot of money per vehicle to be able to scoop to the bottom line if you're a manufacturer. But my dealer friends out there have all said this, and I think you'd all agree that the manufacturers are not particularly happy about how much money dealers are making right now. From the manufacturer perspective, I'm sure they look at this and like, hey, listen, we build these cars. You wouldn't be able to be in business if we weren't building these cars and creating them for you. And I think that there's some sour grapes on the side of the manufacturers in regards to how much money is not falling to their bottom line and is falling to the dealer's bottom line. And the dealers, I think we all know this. The dealers aren't doing anything particularly different, yet they're able to earn significantly more money right now because of the shortage, right? It's just worked out that way. But I've heard a lot of friends and a lot of dealers comment that even the manufacturer or their local sales reps, business centers have communicated that their displeasure at how much money the dealers are making, and that they think that money should be being made on the manufacturer side. Now, we all know, those of us that have been in this business a long time, we all know that there has been at times a contentious back and forth in terms of relationship between the manufacturer and the dealer. It's why there are so many what I would hope are rock solid, ironclad, retail and franchise agreements at the state level to protect dealers from the manufacturer. We all know that the manufacturers have at times tried to go direct and sell cars direct to the public in small experiments over the years, most notably Ford's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which, if I recall correctly, didn't work out so well. The manufacturer typically has not been very good at retailing cars. They're good at wholesaling them, but have not typically been very good at retailing them. And dealers have always been very good at selling and servicing vehicles. It's why they are in business, and it's why they've made so much money over the years. But I think a lot of manufacturers these days, they look at the money the dealer's making. They also look at Elon Musk and what he's been able to do with Tesla, right? And, you just got to believe that the C-level executives at a lot of manufacturers just look at this and they go, if only we could create a different buying experience, if only we could, mimic what Elon is doing to some degree. I mean, Jim Farley, I hope I get his first name right. If I don't, I apologize. I just have, can't remember it perfectly right now. But at Ford has expressed his deep admiration for Elon Musk and their business model. And I think that any major manufacturer would have to look at, Tesla's stock price and their market capitalization and just go, Jesus, I mean, if you look at Tesla's market cap compared to Ford or GM or Chrysler and their stock, their per share price, I mean, it's just it's mind blowing. And the major manufacturers are looking at this and going, how did we let this happen, right? Now, of course, Tesla is able to sell direct to the public, and they've been exceedingly successful as well through doing so. And there's a lot that will say, the valuation on Tesla's stock doesn't make sense. The cars, they don't sell nearly the amount of cars that any major manufacturer does. That's true. Their vehicles have quality issues. That's true. I mean, every major manufacturer through their development and evolutionary chain has experienced some sort of quality issues, and there's plenty of stories about Tesla experiencing those same issues. I think anybody, though, who just sits down and gives it some thought would realize that the valuation of Tesla as a company, the valuation of a per share dollar amount for Tesla stock is not just a valuation on the cars and or how many cars they're selling. I mean, it's a bet on Elon Musk. I mean, that's what people are buying. People are buying Elon. People are buying, his ability to create Tesla, to create SpaceX, to be leading the development of technology that could potentially get, human civilization to Mars. I mean, there's so much, Elon Musk is doing so much more than just building EVs. And I really think, and I'm no expert on this, it's just my opinion. I think that a large amount of the valuation of Tesla is just people putting their money into the Elon Musk enterprise, and they believe in it, and rightly so. I mean, the guy's proven to be remarkable in terms of what he's been able to accomplish and create. And again, to suggest that the major manufacturers don't look at that and go, man, why can't we do that? Of course they do. Of course they think about that kind of stuff, right? And so, how is this going to affect dealers? Well, there's a number of things that are going to affect dealers. And let's just start with, this massive push on electronic vehicles or EVs, the technology that is housed within them, and then also this concept of the connected car, because I think all of these things are going to massively influence, the dealer experience and maybe signal a shift for how the manufacturers want to do business as well too. So number one, we've had this massive technology push over the years, and that's not going to stop. But one of the things that often gets overlooked is this whole concept of the connected car. And what does that mean? Basically, Your car's just another device, right? It's got a gigantic computer in it. It's got the ability to connect to the internet. Over time, different agencies, i.e. insurance agencies, the Department of Transportation, manufacturers are all going to be able to, if they're not already, connect digitally to the car to get data and information. It won't be unlikely that, you know, your insurance rates on your vehicle can and will be dictated by how you actually drive your car, because the data will be shared with the insurance provider. This whole concept of the connected car is very interesting for the dealer and for the manufacturer. You know, for the manufacturer, it represents an opportunity to have a closer relationship with the customer. I mean, typically and historically, the relationship in retail automotive with the customer has been the dealer to the customer, because the dealer is the one that sells the vehicle. The dealer is the one that arranges the financing. The dealer is the one that provides the servicing for the vehicle. And the dealer is the one that kept the information about the customer in their database. So the customer, even though somebody buys a Ford F-150, that customer was, Fort Lauderdale Ford's customer, for lack of better terminology. And as we move to a more connected vehicle, whose customer is that person going to be, right? I mean, if somebody takes delivery of a new vehicle at a dealership, right, but the manufacturer has connectivity into the car to read the data about the car, to communicate directly with the customer, to remind the customer about service, to remind the customer about future finance offers or trade-out programs or other things that are coming in the future, does the dealer lose control of the customer at some point in time when the car is connected and the manufacturer can communicate directly with the customer via a connected car? The car ultimately becomes just another piece of technology. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what it does to the retail automotive dealer if they slowly lose, touch with the customer. And there's two things that are actually facilitating that right now. One is the technology, the connected vehicle technology, which is going to allow these lines of communication to happen, inclusive or exclusive of the dealership. And two, because there's such a shortage of inventory, and because consumers are having to be more flexible in terms of considering ordering a vehicle or getting a vehicle from a dealer that they wouldn't normally buy from just because that dealer has a vehicle in stock, I think the customer is going to start getting a sense that, it doesn't matter where I buy the car. I mean, I'm just going to get the car, right? So there's less relationship with the dealer. And number two, if customers start getting more used to actually ordering a car and waiting for a car, which is what many of them are doing right now, what does that do to their mindset about what it means to buy a vehicle? Well, a vehicle is just now something I have to order, and who ultimately the dealership is facilitating me ordering a car from the factory, right? So there could be a psychological shift going on with the consumer right now, where they start to see less connection to the dealer, a more open-minded approach to ordering a vehicle from the manufacturer and waiting for that car to come in. And as that car becomes exceedingly more technologically advanced and allows data transfer and communication to happen between multiple parties, primarily the manufacturer, where does the dealer sit in all of this, right? Does the dealer just become a delivery point for the vehicle, right? And if so, does the manufacturer or other entities start to get their hands in other pieces of the dealership pie? And the answer is yes. There are a lot of finance lenders out there right now that are beginning to, and I have a good friend who can speak to this much more intelligently than I can, and if you're watching, you'll know who you are. But there are lenders out there that are going and attempting to go direct to the consumer, right? to say, hey, we can offer you automotive financing. We'll put you in touch with the dealer, right? And dealers could lose that piece of the business, which is so profitable to them, the F&I piece, because as the lenders start to realize that maybe they can go direct, get the customer, and just put the customer with a dealer. Well, every dealer knows that, those prearranged finance deals are not the profitable ones, okay? When you're sitting in the F&I department and you as an F&I manager, can craft, the financing of a vehicle for that customer, you have much more control over it and much more profitability. But when you get a check from another bank, or you get a mini deal because the financing has already been arranged, a lot less profitability there. So you've got the manufacturer growing increasingly close to the customer through technology and communication. You've got lenders that are starting to go direct to the public and get control of the consumer and deliver the consumer to the dealer. These are all cutting the dealer out. And additionally, you've got, I'm bouncing around here. Like I said, I was going to talk a little shit on this one. Now you've got this whole EV thing. So we've touched on the connected car, the communication that could increase with the manufacturer. Who ultimately takes control of the customer? Is it the manufacturer? Is it the lender? Does the dealer just become a delivery point? These are all things that need to strongly be considered. And these are all things that put a lot of pressure on dealers over the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm sure that, I'm sure there's tons of them out there, way ahead of me on this. And I know that for a fact. But these are things that are coming down the road. And now you look at this EV thing, right? Now, I think that there's a clear understanding amongst most people that a vehicle that has no emissions, i.e., a non-internal combustion engine that is not producing exhaust with all of the toxic, fluorocarbons and what have you that come out of the exhaust. I mean, I think anybody logically would say, well, yeah, that's good, right? That's going to be better for the environment, better for our ozone layer. And this is not to get into the, the environmental topic. I'll touch on it, but it's more to really discuss EVs and how it's going to affect dealers and why is there this massive push, right? Because, most manufacturers are on this crazy kick to have 100% of their output and or production be EV by the year 2028 or 2030. I think the government has said it's 2030 and the manufacturers are shooting for 2028. 100% of the vehicles produced to be EVs. That's what they're shooting for. It's like, okay, let's just think about that for a second. Now, I think, again, like in my previous statement, having a larger percentage of EVs on the road right now, it's good for the environment. Yes, in terms of reduced pollution. But there's been so much information shared that makes this whole equation just look kind of crazy. So the government's pushing really hard for EVs. In fact, even recently, during this crisis, with Ukraine, we've all seen gas prices rise. Some of the spokespeople from the White House have indicated, well, if you just get an EV, you wouldn't be experiencing the increase in gas price. I mean, okay, whatever. I mean, for the most part, most everyday or ordinary Americans, day-to-day Americans, are not in a position to go out and buy an EV. It's just not in the budget. And it's not a sensible choice at this point in time. You run a plumbing business or what, you're a contractor. What are you going to drive? Okay, you're going to drive a truck right now because that's what helps serve your business. And so as these fuel prices go up, yeah, it's putting a pressure on people. And it will drive the topic a little bit more on EV. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that just seem to not make a whole heck of a lot of sense about EVs. So, and again, I'm sort of paraphrasing things that I've read and what I understand. I am no expert on this. I'm just sharing my opinion here, okay? So there will not be any cliff notes or any sources at the end of this talk. It's just me talking here, just like everybody else does. You sit around, you talk, you share your thoughts and opinions. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But the amount of material, raw material, in terms of lithium and all of the other natural elements that need to go into making these batteries, which are, like 1,000 pounds, the batteries in these EVs, the amount of mining that needs to take place to pull these ores out of, these minerals out of the earth is significant. I mean, it's a significant amount of mining and digging up the earth that needs to happen in order to pull these materials out. And currently, there's a lot of reporting that indicates that a lot of these materials are being sourced from second and third world countries that have very lax environmental standards, lax employment standards. There's some slave labor, there's child labor. There's a lot of dirty side effects to what is going into pulling these minerals out of the earth, right? So there's that piece. Then on the other end, it's like, okay, what happens to all these batteries when they lose their ability to charge and they need to be disposed of? I don't know that anybody's really got a big plan for that other than stacking these things up in the earth somewhere. I mean, what are we going to do? Like dig up all the minerals, leave a big hole, and then throw all the batteries back in when they don't work? I mean, so on the front end, you've got some environmentally questionable practices. You've also got some ethically questionable practices going in to extracting all the information to create these batteries. And on the back end, when the batteries are shot, nobody knows what they're going to do with them or what effect stacking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of these batteries into landfills, what's that going to do for the environment, right? So you've got like potentially bad environmental stuff on the front, potentially bad environmental stuff on the back. And that's the least of it. Because according to Elon Musk, in order to meet the demand of the US government's push on EVs, they're going to have to double the grid. Double the electrical grid. So think about that. Think like when you drive down the road and drive down the highway, think of every power line that you can see. Forget the stuff that's underground. Forget the stuff in cities that's running underground. You got to double it because there's not enough electrical capacity to provide the energy that these cars are going to need. So where's that coming from? How are we going to accomplish that, right? I don't know. I don't know that anybody has the answers to that. I mean, if you were to say right now, I mean, we can't even, as a country, maintain our roads and bridges. All of a sudden, we're going to go on a massive, rewiring of the entire nation to double our electrical capacity for EVs. Okay, let's say that we can even do that. Then what fuels the electricity? Where does the electricity come from? Now, I'm a proponent of clean, renewable sources, right? Wind, solar. If we can crank that stuff out and it's good and it generates the power and it does its job, fantastic. Let's do it, right? But in the meantime, until we get ramped up to that, something's got to power all this increased demand in electricity, and that's going to be fossil fuels, right? So we've got problems on, potential ethical and environmental problems in terms of creating the batteries. We've got potential environmental problems with storing the batteries. We don't have the electrical capacity. And even if we did, what's the primary power that's going to power it? And that's fossil fuel. So where are we all in this equation? And why is there this crazy push to make this happen? I don't know, but I do know that it's going to affect dealers. I think at this point in time, there's been a lot of talk from the manufacturer to dealers talking about how they're going to have to restructure their physical operation to A, have room for the vehicles, B, to be able to service the vehicles. Don't quote me on this, but everything that I saw at Autovate indicated that dealers are going to have to expand their physical operations significantly in order to meet the increased demand for EVs, right? So here it is, you're rocking and rolling as a dealership, you're making great money right now, but just around the corner, you're going to have to reinvest a ton of that money back into facility, which benefits you, but it also is going to have to meet the demands of the manufacturer in order for you to be a meaningful player in this business, right? And it's just one more thing that's going to put a lot of pressure on dealers. I don't know. I still can't make sense. Like, I get it, we want to do what's right for the environment. I think anybody in their heart, it says, yeah, of course we'd like to do good for the planet. Yes, of course. But there's so many components to this EV thing that just don't make sense. It almost makes you go like, is there another agenda? There's something else at play here that would be so important for the government to have, the bulk of vehicles and all of the vehicles over a certain period of time being produced being electric. It seems like there's possibilities there. I won't go into it now. You can draw your own conclusions. I have mine. But at the end of the day, all of these things are going to put a significant amount of pressure on the dealer. If I were a dealer right now, with this ongoing consolidation of groups being sold to the publics and what have you, I'd probably be taking a look at that and saying, okay, what's coming down the next 5 to 10 years, right? Are we going to continue to have these problems with inventory? Are we going to have to shift our business model to an order-based model? As technology increases, will the manufacturer, will finance operation or finance and automotive lenders take a stronger hold of our customer? Does the manufacturer have a desire to move away from the dealer network? And I think the answer there is yes, right? I mean, they've sort of tipped their hat at this, and they've gone down this road before. But Ford has recently sort of tipped their hat at this again, suggesting that Ford's electric vehicles, the EVs, the Lightning products, could be an opportunity for a different business model. I think that's what Farley said, something like that. He said something like that, and then he rolled it back, and then apparently he kind of said it a little bit again at NADA. Now, again, the manufacturers or the dealers are lawyered up and have, very strong state, retail agreements. But do the manufacturers look at technology? Do they look at this pressure and this shift to EV? Do they look at the success that Tesla has had? Do they see this now as their opportunity to create something that is more manufacturer direct? I think the answer there is yes. And so looking at all of these things, in terms of the retail automotive future, I think there's going to be continued pressure on the dealer. I think dealers are going to be fighting for their customers and fighting for their space to operate more significantly. Now, the larger groups are going to be in a better position to do that and weather those storms. The smaller independent stores may find it gets very, 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 very difficult to operate in this environment. And so I think we're going to see a lot of change over the next 5 to 10 years in retail automotive. And I think we're going to continue to see this consolidation. Small dealers are probably going to have to sell and move out because they may just not have what it takes to compete in an environment where data and information is centralized. The customer's loyalty becomes more deeply attached to the manufacturer and or the lender. And if the manufacturer wants to push in this direction of a more direct model, the smaller stores are going to have a harder time with that, without a doubt. So those are my thoughts about the future of retail automotive. A lot of interesting things. And these are these consolidation things. We're seeing that this is happening in the world at large. You're seeing it with international corporations. You're seeing it with international brands. You're going to see it more with collective, global efforts between nations. And you're seeing it in the retail automotive space where this technology, who owns the customer, who owns the data, it's going to continue to drive things, and it's going to make things tight for a lot of dealers, I think, moving forward. So those are my thoughts. I'd be curious to hear what you think on the topic. So please like and comment on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, ring the bell for notifications about new content, and as always, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're safe, and I hope you're making the very best of these times that we live in. Thanks so much, and have a good one.